Congratulations, Slovenia! I'm so happy to have you as part of our family. I'm Henrik Walter Johnson, Vice President of Fit Europe, Board Member of ABTE, Vice Chairman of the Norwegian Association for Audiovisual Translators, and I was also the Project Manager and author of the very first set of subtitling guidelines in Norway. And I'm here to say a few words about that. Towards the end of the 90s, we had an influx of international broadcasters establishing themselves in Scandinavia, like the BBC, the Discovery Channel, and the National Geographic Channel. First without subtitling, but after a while they started to offer translations into Norwegian. But the problem was that they didn't offer subtitles in the same way that Norwegian viewers were used to. And so most people found them puzzling or annoying. So something had to be done. Now, subtitles are not popular everywhere in the world, but in certain regions, like the Nordics, the subtitling tradition has thrived and become part of our way of life. In Norway, in fact, people read a lot of subtitles, the equivalent of 17 books per year. So it's important that they have very high quality. But then, what is quality in subtitling? Well, of course, there are many opinions on this, which means that basically nobody is right or wrong. It's just we all have different opinions. And perhaps better than an opinion is an established tradition. And Norway has an established tradition of subtitling. And this tradition of TV subtitling dates back to 1960. And it's been a great success in this country. People like subtitles, people expect subtitles, and people prefer subtitles. When a large broadcaster tried dubbing on a primetime show in the 90s, it was well and truly rejected and ridiculed by the public. We did not like dubbing at all. But people care about subtitling quality and they love to complain when mistakes happen. I guess you've all heard the classic mistake, which comes from Norway, where are you familiar with the concept of make-up sex? It's when you've had an argument and you were unfriendly and then you become friends again and then you go off and do the Humpty Hum. That's make-up sex, and it was translated into the other kind of makeup. So they wrote sminkesex, which means that kind of makeup. And it was absurd, and it's become the go-to example of a subtitling faux pas. So, like I said, a few years ago, we started to see an increase of international broadcasters entering the Norwegian market. And although they did provide subtitles, many of them were not following the traditional rules. And so they did not do it the way we used to, much to our bemusement. And what can you do when that happens? How do you get multinational companies to follow your rules, your local rules, in a small country? Well, the first thing you have to do is to define what those rules are. So we invited people from every level of the industry to come together and work out a document for best practices for subtitling in Norway. Best practices is EU language for standards or guidelines. We invited the public broadcaster NRK, which is also the largest broadcaster, to represent the public broadcasters. We invited the commercial broadcaster SBS Discovery, which covers, for instance, the Discovery Channel and the oldest commercial channel in Norway, called TV Norge. We also invited the largest localization agencies, BTI Studios and SDI Media, and some highly regarded practitioners from our own Translators Association, Navio. We also had on board the Norwegian Language Council, which is the official governmental language authority. And of course, we all represented the viewers. Every partner was represented by a high-ranking executive, and we had a series of physical meetings discussing the model. We came together and sat around a table and discussed word by word what was going to go into that document to make sure that we could all agree on everything. And if we didn't agree, it didn't go in. And over the course of a year or so, the final document was published on the Language Council's website, where it still is today. So Norway has set the snowball in motion here, but the truth is that the Norwegian model is not so special. The tradition is very similar in the other Nordic countries, and they too have launched their own quality standards now. The Danish and Finnish guidelines were launched in 2019. Sweden launched theirs earlier this year. And our hope is that all the individual Nordic models turn out to be so similar that we can easily agree on a common Nordic model for the Nordic market. And if all the different levels of the industry and all the Nordic countries point to one set of standards, it'll be pretty difficult to ignore if you want to do business there. And that's what localization is all about, knowing how the market works on a local level. But why stop there? The ball has already started rolling. Now Croatia, the Netherlands, and Germany have launched national guidelines already, and similar work has been done in France. The Spanish and Polish AVT associations are interested in looking into this, and the British association SATO has defined a set of guidelines for their members. I'm acting as a special advisor to the Chinese committee, developing similar standards for China. And last year I went to St. Petersburg to urge the Russian localization industry to consider developing guidelines also for Russia, which are now underway. And now we are so happy and proud to admit Slovenia to the family. So the European Audiovisual Translators Federation, AVTE, has reached out to the European Broadcasting Union, EBU, who are very interested in learning more about the standards that are now being developed everywhere. And they have suggested we come to Geneva for a meeting with them to discuss it further. We've also caught the attention of the European Federation of National Institutions for Language, FNIL, which is basically the next level of language councils. So every national language council is represented at this European Language Council. That's what FNIL is more about. But most importantly, we've managed to break through to Netflix and the BBC. I've met Netflix localization management team several times, and Netflix is now urging Norwegian translators to follow the Norwegian guidelines on Netflix content. It makes perfect sense. Because of course they're interested in giving their viewers the best possible viewing experience. They've agreed to have biannual meetings with us to keep an open dialogue and see what can be done. Obviously that didn't happen this year, but we're hoping to continue that next year. I've also had meetings with BBC Studios, which is the branch of the BBC that deals with programming outside of the UK, for instance, channels like BBC Earth and BBC Entertainment and BBC Brit and those. And in June of this year, they instructed all of the localization vendors that they use in the Nordics to ensure that their translators are sticking to the national guidelines. And this is exactly why we wanted to create these guidelines, to help the international end clients localize better and to give our local audiences subtitles that are more in line with what they're used to seeing. That's localization in a nutshell. So thank you again. Congratulations, Slovenia. I'm so proud of you.